Okay.
Introducing. Today is a special episode. Today I'm leaving my comfort zone of Western classical music and we are heading east. Today we're going to learn about the Arabic oud. So I am fascinated by the oud for a number of reasons, but mainly because the oud is the ancestor of the European lute. That European lute, by the 15th century, would fully blossom and become one of the most important instruments of the musical period we call the Renaissance. So in 711, the Moors, who were the inhabitants of northwest Africa of the time, they decided to invade Spain. And when they did, they brought with them the oud. In the Arabic world, the oud was commonly referred to as the king or the sultan of all instruments. And in fact, oud or al-oud in Arabic simply means from wood. So, it's an instrument made of wood. The oud is a likely descendant of an ancient instrument called the barbat, which was a Persian instrument dated back to something like 3,500 years ago. Now, the earliest form of the oud would have just 4 strings made of gut, sheep intestine, right? And over time, over the centuries, they added more and more strings until nowadays the common stringing for an oud is 11 strings, and that's 5 doubled strings tuned in unisons, and then 1 low string which is single. So for the tuning, we have C, 2 Fs, 2 As, 2 Ds, 2 Gs, and 2 Cs. So notice all the strings are tuned in fourths, perfect fourths, except for the F to the A, which is a major third. So this instrument is played with a plectrum, or a pick, right? And this is called a risha, which just means feather. And that's because the original plectrums for this instrument would have likely been an eagle's quill. But today, often players just use plastic or a wood, like a piece of bamboo. All ouds are pear-shaped on the soundboard, and they typically have 3 sound holes. Sometimes they're full of incredibly beautiful, ornate decoration. The back of the instrument is always bowl-shaped, and this is made up of individual strips of wood called ribs, usually made of a hardwood, which are heated up and bent and glued together to make this gorgeous shape here, which also gives the instrument its characteristic tone. Then on top here we have a bent backwards peg box, which is quite beautiful. And we have friction pegs, just like a violin. These pegs you just push in and turn, and that's what holds the notes at pitch. The most interesting and distinguishing part of this instrument for me as a fretted player is that this doesn't have any frets. This is a fretless instrument. Now at first it seems a bit daunting not to have frets. However, it has its advantages. For example, I can slide between notes, right? I have no frets in the way, so I have infinite gradations between each note. And when I play a melody, instead of playing 3 distinct pitches all the time, I can, for example, slide between them, which is, if you listen to the music, very characteristic of that sound. In the beginning of this video, I played a Turkish song called Üsküdar'a Giderken, and the simple melody just sounds like this. But I was utilizing a lot of those ornamental slides to make the song sound more vocal, and in fact, oud players are often meant to improvise over the melodies to make them more interesting. So I came up with Another reason this instrument is fretless is in order to play correctly all of the varieties of maqams. And a maqam is simply a scale. There are roughly something like 100 regularly used maqams in Arabic music. And when you compare that to basically the 7 church modes that we use in Western classical music, maybe plus the chromatic scale and the whole tone scale, it's pretty impressive. Okay, so let's hear some of these maqams. The easiest one for me to wrap my head around is called Nahawand, and that's basically the Aeolian mode, which is just the minor scale. So in D, it would be D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D. And that's actually the same scale I was using for the Turkish tune Üsküdar'a Giderken. And another maqam that I found pretty relatable is called Kurd, and that's basically the Phrygian mode. So it's the same as the natural minor scale, the Nahawand maqam, except there's an E flat, which makes it Phrygian. So we have D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat, C, D. Now here's where things get complicated, especially for me as a complete newbie to the oud and Arabic music in general. So depending on which maqam you're using, you might have to use microtones, microtones that exist in between the Western semitone. The Western scale is basically an octave, it's like C to C, divided up into 12 half steps or semitones. Each semitone is like one key on the piano or one fret on the guitar. But in Arabic music, certain maqams use notes in between those Western semitones. So for example, if we take A, and then we use B flat, that's about a Western semitone. A B half flat would be sharp, so something around there. And apparently depending on which region you're from, that'll determine just how sharp or flat that semitone is. And I find that to be just so cool. It's so challenging to my ear because it just sounds out of tune, because I'm only used to playing in the Western parameters. But if we hear it in context, we can start to understand why that can add some interesting flavor to the music. So here's the normal B flat. And now the B half flat. It actually makes a lot of sense to me now. When I hear it in context, it doesn't sound out of tune, it just sounds kind of like a different emotional affect. My favorite maqam that I've found so far is called Hijaz, and basically that is D, E half flat, somewhere around there, so it's like, again, like a sharp E flat, F sharp, G, A, B half flat, C, D. When I first heard that scale, I thought it kind of reminded me of that theme from Pulp Fiction, you know? If I decided to take this instrument seriously and study it, one of the challenges would be memorizing a long list of maqams and then being able to endlessly improvise over any of them. This is another beautiful piece called Hafaween. It uses the Nahawand maqam, which again is basically Aeolian. So, bringing us into the 21st century, the oud is no longer just an Arabic instrument. It comes in many shapes and sizes, and is played all around the world in many different musical styles. It's such a beautiful, versatile instrument. And if you are as fascinated about this instrument and its music as I am, I would strongly suggest that you listen to some real oud players. I am just a beginner on this instrument. I have officially taken one oud lesson, but I have just scratched the surface of the capabilities of this instrument. If you want to hear what this beautiful instrument can really do, I suggest you listen to some of the great oud players of the world. My favorite right now is a Tunisian oud player named Anor Brahim. There's also this fantastic Iraqi oud player named Nasir Shama. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about the oud today with me. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel, and if you hit the bell notification, you'll get an email when I release my
Okay, so did you hear it clearly, everybody? Okay, now let's share some of your notes. Could you share something about the instrument? What have you noted there sa inyo individually? I'm just, when I say share your notes, I'm talking about the description of the instrument. Let's start with that. Okay, can you describe the instrument for me? Anybody?
It has 11 strings, 5 double
Okay.
strings, and 1 low note.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. How it is tuned?
It uses intervals of fourths, except for the F to A, which is a major third.
Okay. So, is it, saan siya kahawig na tuning in Western instrument? Meron ba? Or merong kalapit?
I guess violin, based on the pegs anyway. I don't know.
Okay. What else? Dan says it's guitar daw.
Also guitar po.
Yeah.
I think.
Tama. Okay, guitar. Guitar is tuned like, is it fourths pataas?
Yes po.
Yeah. Wala lang siyang major third na pagitan. Okay, what else? Good.
Meron din po doon sa dalawang string sa guitar. Major third.
Okay. So meron ding dalawang strings doon sa guitar na major third ang intervals. Okay, thank you, Ma'am Sarah. What else? How about the so one notable thing about it, it's fretless, right? It's fretless. So wala siyang frets. And what does it do? Anong naitutulong nung wala siyang fret?
Easier to slide po.
Easier to slide, and sabi ni Ian, that creates like the feel of a microtone. Okay, let's go to that. Bago natin iwan yung description, general description sa instrument, it has a pear shape sa kanyang sa likuran, yung pinaka-body niya, it's pear shaped, and that creates the good resonance that we hear, no? And ano siya, the fact that each note doon sa intervals na pagitan ng bawat strings ay binubuo ng dalawa, what does it do? Except the lowest note, which is one string only. What does it do kapag dalawa yung strings? Like, rondalla instruments, di ba? Na meron tayo. 3 bawat note. So, ano nangyayari? Kung dalawa, in executing notes, playing notes, pwede ka makapag-play ng tremolo, di ba? So, it's easier to play tremolos as compared to one string. Okay, let's go to some cents. Ang tawag doon cents or microtones. What is a microtone? Based on what interval smaller than a semitone, sabi ni Aya. That's good. So kung sa piano, the lowest is, the shortest interval is, sa kanila may pagitan pa to. Okay? Yun yung nagbibigay ng distinct quality sa kanilang music. Okay? Tayo wala tayong ganun. Ang pagkakaalam natin kasi heavily influenced tayo by the West. So, yun na rin yung kiniklaim natin na maliliit, pero traditional music natin, which will be discussed by your main teachers, meron din sigurong ganito, kaya lang hindi na siya sinusukat. Hindi na siya sinusukat kasi ano na yun built-in na yun sa instrument na kung ano yung meron tayo. So, okay, let's go to the maqam. Okay, what is a maqam? Anybody? Yeah, it's a scale, or it is where their tonality lies. Ito yung parang, this is the basis of their improvisation, the maqam. How many maqams daw meron sila? Hundreds. Okay, hundreds. Yung nag-mention siya ng ilang mga names ng maqams na merong similarities with the church modes that we all know. Are you familiar with church modes? Those who are taking theory, those who have taken theory classes. Okay. So, yeah. Can you name some of the maqams that he named?
Nahawand and Kurd.
Nahawand. Okay, Kurd. What else? Ano pa? Meron pa siyang tatlo yun eh. Yeah, Hijaz. Yeah, Hijaz is another one. Okay. So, yeah. So, ano yun? Nakapattern siya sa mga modes. I do have a follow-up question with that, no? Tayo ba sa churches natin nowadays, meron ba tayong ginagamit na, are you open to create music built on modes in your churches? Would you take that step even a little further in your churches? Why or why not? Anybody? Oh, Ian, yes.
Sir, yung modes kasi nagbibigay ng color, like let's say sa Lydian mode, yung sharp 4. Kung introduce natin siya sa ganun, kasi ang tunog ng Lydian mode more of you're in a hopeful something like that na sound. Kapag ina-incorporate po yung Lydian mode na yung mode na yon, and other like Aeolian mode, which is very common, yung minor scale po, and yung Phrygian minsan nagagamit po to emphasize talaga yung sorrow, something like that po. Kaya kung pupunta po sa modes, kung dito po sa church namin, okay lang po kasi sabi nga po sa ibang nakakapag-heighten po ng message po yung music.
The fact that they were named church modes.
Exactly
diba?
po.
Okay. So, okay. Kasi tayo, ang main ano lang natin, major and minor, diba? Sa Western music. Although, meron tayong mga modes earlier sa Western music. Pero, bakit hindi natin yun magawa na incorporate sa music natin? Bakit hanggang hanggang minor lang yung nagagawa natin. Yes, we have mga hurdles that we need to go over with in order for us to be able to maximize the use of parang alien na mga tonalities, yung hindi masyadong use yung congregation natin. But I think walang masama, no, pagdating sa ganung bagay na mag-incorporate ng mga modes, especially those among you who are writing compositions for their churches. Yan yung calling ninyo. I think that's one of the avenues that you can explore. Kasi tulad nga ng sinabi ni Ian, ano yan parang it gives more color variations. Hindi lang yung laging used sila sa minor and major tonalities. Maganda yung meron pang ibang variations. Am I saying that you need to do this every now and then sa mga churches ninyo? I'm not saying that. But this is part of widening your horizons. Okay? And musical choices. Okay, let's go to Iran. Okay? Hindi ko na papakita yung PowerPoint. But I have some examples dito sa music of Iran. Tapos na tayo sa Arab. Though ito generally ay Arabic nations itong tinatakal natin. But we are going to discuss the santur. Santur is S-A-N-T-U-R. So I want you to look at the instrument and how it is being played and tell me later after watching the video kung ano yung pwede nating matutunan about this instrument. Pay close attention. Listen carefully to its tonality. Okay? Do hindi niya explain doon ano yung paano siya naka-tune, ganyan. Talagang magpe-play lang siya ng pyesa. But I think you'll be able to get ano yung ginagawa ng instrument na to.
Nawala ba si Sir AJ? Na-disconnect ba siya?
Yes po.
Okay. Siguro habang hinihintay natin siya, Ma'am Reg, yung ating announcement. So, next week ng ating exam.
Sige, I
Okay.
will try to share yung screen ko. Kung
Okay. Hello?
Ayun si sir.
Sorry. Pero narinig nyo ba? Narinig nyo yung portion? Hindi?
No.
Hindi po.
Wala.
Sorry. Oh, wait lang. Okay. Sorry ha. Kanina pa ako nagpe-play, yung pala disconnected na ako sa inyo. Okay. For a while. I think hindi ko na magawang host yung sarili ko, Ma'am Sarah. Ma'am Regine.
Sir Reg, nakaka-host ka po ba? Co-host mo po siya?
Oo nga, ba't ako naging host? Actually, nakakita ko lang ngayon. Sige, subukan kong ayusin.
Sige. Thanks. As in, wala kayo narinig? Sorry.
Wala po.
Okay. Sige. Okay na?
Walang icon ng co-host dito. Di ba sa participants po yan?
Opo. Yung sa more, o kaya mag-out ka na lang as host?
Oh, sige. Kasi actually, inopen ko yung PC ko. Tapos naka-connect din ako sa computer. Sige, i-leave ko yun sa PC. Yeah. Wala pa rin po.
Wala pa rin. Sarah, baka ikaw naman ang host ngayon? Hindi naman. Ma'am Sarah.
Hindi naman. Wait na.
Okay, allow na lang ako na mag-share ng screen. Pwede ba yun? Kasi only the host can share in this meeting. So I can't share.
Ayan, sir. Ito na. Try ka na. Make host.
Okay.
Host ka na, sir.
Okay. Salamat. Thanks. Okay. Listen to this, ha. Okay, I think you have heard enough. Describe the instrument. Anybody?
It looks like a dulcimer almost.
Okay. Any of you remember kung ano yung classification of musical instruments by Sachs and Hornbostel? Are you familiar with their classification of musical instruments? That's how musical, hindi lang critics, but even researchers, ethnomusicologists are describing the categories of instruments. Are you familiar with that? Pag alam lang natin, di ba, string instrument, wind instrument, percussion, but they have terms for that. Si Sachs at saka Hornbostel. What are those? Chordophones, membranophones, idiophones, yun yung classification nila. How are you going to categorize the satur? Is it santur pala, sorry, santur. Ano siya? It's a string instrument. Okay? So we are calling it chordophone, right? Chordophone. Kasi they use chords or strings in order to make the sound. And paano siya piniplay? Yeah, it's being struck. Okay? Kaya nga may mga nagsasabi na santur daw ay dito rin nag-originate ang piano kasi yung mechanism ng pagtunog ng piano na kinakailangan siyang i-struck for the strings na kailangan na tumunog, okay? Different from harpsichord na pinapluck siya. Okay? So, yun. How about the tonality of it? Anybody? Yung mga hindi pa nagsasalita. Raya?
I'm not sure, sir.
Not sure. Okay. Merong kapansin-pansin doon sa way ng pagtugtog niya. If you are paying close attention. Yes, Christian.
Meron po siyang isang tunog na taten, 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 taten. Ulit-ulit yung tinutugtog po yung
Okay. It's like the bass note, parang the tonal center. And anong ginagawa nung right hand niya? Paulit-ulit siya na parang tremolo lang. Okay? And then, anong ginagawa? Nag-i-improvise na siya after establishing that using his right hand. Diba? Yung, kung ano man yung scale na built yung melody, he starts playing with it, playing around it. Okay, now, meron pa akong video na papakita sa inyo. Quite interesting. They call this the Persian piano. I'm not exactly sure kung tama yung tuning niya, pero try to observe kung paano pinlay itong Persian piano na to using a dasga. A dasga is just like the maqam of the Arabic maqam na doon nakabuilt yung melody. It is the key wherein you will improvise. So ang counterpart niya sa Iran is the dasga. Okay? So parang iyon yung mode system nila. So try to look at this. Okay. So, what's interesting dun sa nakita nyong video recording? Anybody? Walang sound? Wala? Wala na naman kayo narinig? Okay. Can somebody speak up? Wag lang sa chat. Sabi nung isa niyong classmate ay, ano yun? Gamit lang daw yung dalawang fingers. Okay? Tapos, ano mapapansin niyo sa piniplay niya? You can see the keys, right? And somehow you know kung ano yung tunog ng mga keys na yun. 'Di ba? So, they call it a Persian piano. So, ano yan, parang it's adaptation. They adapt a Western instrument and build the tuning based on their culture. So I think yung chinun yung mga strings na yon based on the dasga, their modal system, the Persian modal system. Kaya yung tunog ng piano, kasi if you will try it, kapag kinumpare nyo siya yung exact na pagpe-play doon sa piano na meron tayo ngayon, it will sound hindi katulad nung tunog nung sa kanya. So, any observation doon sa tonality? Did you observe na madalas may octave? Yung pagitan ng fingers niya nasa octave to create a tremolo effect. Okay? Tremolo effect. Tapos, of course, very evident ang improvisation, melodic improvisation, as you have seen there. At what can you say about the santur and the manner how the Western piano has been played using the dasga? Meron ba kayo na-observe doon? Very very soloistic ang approach niya. Very soloistic ang approach. Hindi siya katulad ng very communal, yung dating na maraming involved. And the last video that I will show you is from Egypt, na makikita niyo yung difference niya. So, one main difference from their instrument is that very soloistic ito, very improvisatory in nature, ang music from Arab and ito sa Iran. Pero when we go to Egypt, meron na silang ensemble, okay, instrumental ensemble. So I just want you to listen to their playing. Okay, so how are you going to compare Egypt's, we call that the tact ensemble, instrumental ensemble. Instrumental ensemble siya mainly, pero there are times na merong vocal na pumapasok. Tact is spelled T-A-K-H-T. T-A-K-H-T. This is from Egypt. Okay, so we can see the difference now from a soloistic point of view. Though hindi ko naman sinasabi na walang instrumental ensemble yung dalawa na tinakal natin. Pero this one ang prominent yung instrumental ensemble. So what can you say about their playing? Ang pagpe-play ba nila parang halo-halo na kung ano yung gusto mag-play? Kung sino yung gusto mag-play at sabay-sabay na siya na parang hinalo-halo lang yung music? Or there's some kind of an order happening? Philip?
Yeah po. They're more organized in terms of
Okay.
accompaniment. There's this narinig ko, there's this movement na parang may pedal tone. Although may improvisation, pero it's more organized compared to the other culture.
So meron silang parang, okay, we will play the harmony, you play the solo part. Parang ganun siya. And there's an parang echo effect. Magpe-play muna yung group and then i-improvise siya nung solo instrument. So that's how they do it. So we can see here na iba-iba ang approach per culture, especially sa traditional music nila. May mga times na very soloistic ang approach sa mga instruments. Even us here in the Philippines, indigenous music natin, may mga ganong part. May mga instrument tayo na for solo playing and we have also instruments that are good for a certain number of people. Pero you can see na may order, walang order, ganyan. So, minsan makikita nyo, makakategorize nyo at maaalala nyo yung music nila in that sense. Okay, I think I need to stop here kasi may mga announcements pa. So, Miss Sarah and Miss Regine.
Pa-co-host po, sir. Pa-change po. Para ma-share ko lang po yung screen. Tapos pwede na rin po yata ang stopping recording kasi announcement lang naman po.